Good morning. With summer on the horizon, motorcycles are hitting the road for some easy rides. Our panelists today will be covering all things motorcycles, from getting your bike ready for the road and preparing for a ride to sharing the road safely with other vehicles and insurance considerations. I'm sure novice and experts riders alike will find this webinar very interesting. With us today is our own Fran Mako, who's a Senior Public Affairs Specialist at AAA Northeast. Also, we have Jillian Wong, who's our Senior Insurance Agent, also with AAA Northeast. I just want to let everyone know that we will have time at the end of the presentation for questions and answers. If you could, please use the chat box to enter your questions. Today, Fran will cover important safety tips and motorcycle coverage with your AAA membership. Fran is a 19-year-old veteran of AAA Northeast. Fran is a senior traffic safety specialist who handles media inquiries, presents driving improvement classes, and is responsible for traffic community outreach in New Haven, Fairfield, and Litchfield counties in Connecticut. Fran has been a certified child passenger safety technician since 2002 and is a certified motorcycle safety instructor for the state of DOT, Connecticut, Riders Education Program, and she's been with that for the past 12 years. Welcome, Fran.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you. Today, I'm going to give you 3 motorcycle safety tips plus a recommendation. First, wear the proper gear. We call it ATGAT, all the gear, all the time. And I tell my students, understand there's no little crash when you're on a motorcycle. And without the proper gear, asphalt is like a cheese grater on your skin. So you have to excuse me because my lights keep going out. The proper gear includes a jacket with armor in the elbows and shoulders. This is armor, goes on your shoulder in the jacket. This goes on your elbows and your kneecaps. So a jacket like the one behind me. Full-fingered leather gloves, over the ankle boots like this. Okay, you need to have long, sturdy pants. Denim is okay. Pants with armor in the knees, hips, shins are better. Leather is the best. Proper eyewear. They could be sunglasses, they could be goggles, they could be a shield. And finally, a helmet like these behind me. You can have a full face helmet like this one, my fluorescent yellow, or a 3/4 or half helmet like this one here. I just want to take a moment though to talk about helmets. And as controversial as helmets are, the science doesn't lie. A DOT compliant helmet is 37% more effective in preventing fatal injuries to motorcycle operators. However, helmet advocates like me can talk about the safety aspect of helmets till the cows come home, but I know it won't change the minds of our anti-helmet riders. So enough said, that's another conversation, another webinar for the future. Second, do your T-CLOCS before you ride. T-CLOCS is an acronym for the pre-ride safety inspection, the check you do on your entire motorcycle before you leave your driveway. T stands for tires and wheels. Are your tires properly inflated? Are there cracks in the sidewalls? Are your spokes broken? C is for controls. Are your brake and clutch levers working? Are your cables, are they frayed? L is for lights and electrics. Do your taillights work? How about your headlight? Do your signal lights work? O is for oil and fluids. Is your oil too low? I mean, oil is the lifeblood, just like in a car, is the lifeblood of your vehicle. C is for chassis or frame. Is your frame cracked? Is it rusted? Are the screws loose? Are the accessories falling off? And S is for side stand. Does it hold up the bike when you park? And Lord knows, I've seen people put their side stands down and they didn't work and the bike falls over. And third, this is the most important safety aspect. It's rider training. I tell my students, if you have a choice to buy a bike, whether you're a first-time user or an experienced rider, or to invest in a rider education class, spend the money on rider education. It's the smarter investment because it most likely will change your life. In AAA Northeast territory, there are various training programs. Some are state-run, others are privatized. Most are developed by the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Only Connecticut and Rhode Island require this class before you get your motorcycle endorsement. New Jersey and Massachusetts require training only if you're under 18, and New York doesn't require any training before you get your motorcycle license, although many programs are available. And on this slide, it identifies the programs in our 5 states. And prices vary, but they are certainly well worth the cost. In Connecticut, we're known as Conrep. And you can go to rideforever.org and link to the Conrep icon. Massachusetts, go to the state website. It's easiest to search for motorcycle training. Ditto for Rhode Island. It's run by a community college, and go to ccri.edu. Again, search motorcycle training. New Jersey, go to the state website, search that again, motorcycle training. And New York State has its own website for its safety program, nysmsp.org. All these programs teach new and experienced riders how to swerve, how to emergency brake, how to navigate curves and intersections, the most dangerous areas of a road for any driver, not only a motorcyclist. And finally, one last recommendation. Imagine you're on the road, the open road, and the proverbial wind and rain is in your face, and suddenly you get a flat. Or you're ready to ride, and as you're doing your T-clocks in your driveway, you discover your battery is dead. What do? You call us, and it's AAA to the rescue. And that's because we provide motorcycle roadside assistance to Plus and Premier members for an additional $30. Money well spent. In this slide, it tells you what you get for your $30. We'll deliver fuel if you run out of gas. We'll inflate your tires if they're flat. We'll jump your battery if you need a start. And finally, if we can't get you back into the saddle, we'll tow you to a location of your choice. And this is the one feature that differentiates us from our competitors. We use special equipment to transport your baby. We use the Condor. The Condor is a special cradle that secures your bike safely on a flatbed. We don't walk your bike up a ramp on the flatbed, nor do we strap down your bike by its forks and pull it up to the ramp like our competitors do. We roll the bike into the Condor. It's the cradle that secures the wheels of your motorcycle. And once secured in the Condor, we winch the entire cradle onto the flatbed, where again it's secured, and away we go. So, Mark, let's go to the videotape and show what the Condor looks like.
The Condor cycle loader makes it easy to recover any motorcycle. Just roll the motorcycle into the device, which adjusts for any type of bike. Then tie the bike down to the O-rings on both front brake stops. Once done, you're ready to winch the unit onto the truck. Next, secure the rear of the motorcycle to the truck. Then engage both brake stops on the front of the cycle loader and tie the bike down for transport. Once that's done, you're ready to go. It's just that easy. And remember, the cycle loader is made in America.
So as you can see, this method is safer, a more protective way to transport a motorcycle. I mean, in the old days, if your bike died, you would have to duck walk your bike up that flatbed, which was very difficult for short people like me. So this is a godsend. I tell my fleet folks, there's nothing scarier than a big fat biker covered with tattoos and an eye patch whose bike has been damaged in transport. This is the way to avoid that. So before your next ride, please look into AAA's motorcycle roadside assistance. And of course, wear your gear, do your T-clocks, enroll in motorcycle education. In all cases, it's money well spent, and it might very well save your life.
You know what, Fran? Very interesting. I know that you've been a motorcycle rider. I think your husband and your son also ride bike.
No, 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 no. My husband does not go near anything on two wheels. And that's because, not even a bicycle, that's because when he was a child, he was hit not once, but twice by a drunk driver on a bicycle and suffered
Oh my goodness.
some damage. My son, on the other hand, just bought his first bike, and it's not my choice. It's not my taste, but he's young, and he went through the class, and it's just a matter of time before we have it serviced, and he'll be riding too. So mom and son.
Mom and son, I think that's wonderful. I'm surprised that New York State does not require training.
No,
That
I know.
really was unbelievable. So thank you. You gave a lot of helpful tips, and I'm sure everyone's going to enjoy what you did share with them.
Okay.
So again, thank you for bringing your equipment and everything in, and happy riding.
Thank you.
Our next panelist is going to be Jillian. Welcome, Jillian. Jillian will be reviewing insurance. Jillian will be reviewing insurance coverage. She's a senior insurance agent for AAA Northeast agency and has worked for AAA since for many years. Currently, Jillian works in the internal sales department servicing writing business for Connecticut, New York, and New Jersey members. Jillian also specializes in all personal lines of insurance products, including automobiles, homeowners, personal umbrella, life, and motorcycle insurance policy. Jillian has a passion for volunteerism and has given back to the community and volunteers at the Connecticut Food Bank and Habitat for Humanity. Welcome, Jillian.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you, Fran. That was an amazing presentation. And now I know all about safety on the road if I ever ride a bike. So we're going to focus on motorcycle insurance, particularly today, just to make sure you have your safety gear and to make sure that you are safe on the road out there. So how is insuring a motorcycle different from a car? Well, riding a motorcycle carries different risks than driving a car. There's a higher probability for serious injury resulting from what would have otherwise been a minor accident. So we all know, other than your safety gear, even if you're a good driver, there's not much protection. You have to account for the other motorists that are out on the road. I mean, how many times has this happened when you're on your bike? They've merged right in front of you. They've cut you off. I even heard from a policyholder where he had a serious injuries because somebody opened the car door unexpectedly and they weren't looking out for him. So unlike a car where you have your steel frame, you have your airbags and your seatbelt, the risk is there, and how do we account for that? There are special coverage protections available to motorcycle policies that reflect risk, liability exposure. So it's not only about the other party, but that also insures for guest passenger liability. And we want to make sure that you are protected as well as your passenger. And the uninsured, underinsured motorist. So you're hit by someone who is uninsured, hit and run, or they have minimal coverages. The question you want to ask yourself is, who's going to pay for my medical bills when I'm laid up in the hospital and I can't work? So we want to account for that and make sure you're protected. One size does not fit all. Many motorcycle riders will customize their rides with aftermarket accessories and features. So it's not always the stock bikes. You want to make sure that you tell your insurance agent all the accessories that you have, because quite frankly, those aftermarket equipment can add up. And there is special endorsements we can add to your policy to reflect that. Your insurance coverages should reflect the safety features of your bike, its potential costs of repair in the case of an accident or covered loss, and of course the value of your investment, including what may be required by your bank or financing company. So a lot of times on a motorcycle policy, when you're adding physical damage, it's actual cash value. There are additional coverages. You can add gap insurance, which is going to take care of the difference between the loan and the value of the bike. So that's something you want to consider when you're financing the bike. And we mentioned safety features of the bike. There are discounts to minimize the cost of insurance. So let's talk about when you call in for a quote and we populate the VIN number, it's going to automatically account for the safety features of that particular motorcycle. So it might pop up that you have anti-lock brakes, or there might be an additional feature you bought with the dealer, such as low jack or a vehicle recovery device. And Fran talked about all those safety courses that you can take in the different states. There is a discount for that. There's also a discount for being a safe driver, claim-free credit, and AAA membership, as well as the motorcycle endorsement that you get on your driver's license. Next.
Okay.
All right, so let's talk coverages. So the policy is broken down into three parts. You'll have your liability coverages, which is injuries, pain and suffering to the other party. We talked about that also factors in the guest passenger liability, also coverage for yourself if you're hurt. The physical damage coverage also has to do with your vehicle. If it's damaged or stolen, it pays regardless of who's at fault in the accident. So we want to take into consideration the value of the bike and make sure that is discussed. And deductibles will apply. So a deductible pay is what you pay out of your pocket before the insurance company starts to pay. The higher deductible, the lower the premium, and we can adjust that accordingly. Specialized coverages is all the bells and whistles on a motorcycle policy. So this is where you want to pay attention. A lot of the carriers now are adding some really great products in where you can have carried contents, that's your personal property covered. You can have that accessory coverage that we talked about, and we'll go into that a little later in detail. All right, so let's tackle liability coverage. This will take care of legal responsibilities to the other party up to your chosen limit. And there's bodily injury liability. So that applies to medical expenses, pain and suffering, and loss of income to the victim or other party would like to say. This also includes your legal fees should they bring suit. So the legal fees are paid over and above the limit. So typically with bodily injury liability, you'll see on your policy declarations, or if you're discussing purchasing a policy, split limits of liability or combined single limit. If it's split limits of liability, basically they're dividing the liability between a per person occurrence and for the entire accident. So for example, if it's 100, 300, simply means it's $100,000 per person that's paid out, no more than 300,000 each occurrence. Whereas if it's a combined single limit and the allotted amount is 300,000 on your policy declarations, that means if someone's hurt or their vehicle is damaged or their property, there's $300,000 allotted for that one particular claim. Property damage liability, that's damage you caused to the other person's property. This can include everything from a car, another motorcycle, a telephone pole, a billboard, fence, even a guardrail. And let me tell you, I had a client call in about a claim. She had a telephone pole. And I was like, oh, no big deal. Well, the town decided they were going to charge her to replace the entire pole, the labor costs, and it was upwards of $10,000. So property damage can add up pretty quickly, which leads us to talk about minimum liability coverage. It talks about nearly all states require that you get minimum liability coverage in order to operate and register your bike. Yes, that is like in Connecticut, for example, it's $25.50. That's the absolute bare bones to register your bike. But what does that get you? Quite frankly, if someone is hurt, remember we talked about your liability is also going to cover your guest passenger liability. It's quite easy to go through $25,000 fairly quickly. So it's very, very inadequate coverage, in my opinion, to protect you and your loved ones and the other person, particularly from a lawsuit. Consider your financial situation. So if you own a home, you're going to want to have more coverages. Your home is your greatest asset, I would think. So you'd want to make sure you have adequate protection. It could be a simple accident where you cut off someone and the other vehicle goes into a guardrail and there's multiple injuries, so that can add up fairly quickly, not to mention the property damage of the other party. So factor that in when you're calling and discussing your coverages. Lower coverage limits may cost less now, but in the case of an accident, it may not always pay for damages. So, let's not be penny wise and pound foolish. I think that's the saying.
No, that definitely does make a lot of sense, though.
Thank you. All right, uninsured, underinsured motorist coverage. This coverage is for you. So, particularly with being on a motorcycle, you're exposed, and so there's a higher probability of injury to yourself and to your passenger. I read somewhere where, if you're hit, knock on wood, that you could be traveling at a velocity, the same speed as a bike. So it's very, very serious that you protect yourself and you have enough coverage. So this is if you're hurt by someone who didn't carry enough liability coverage or any coverage at all, this coverage will apply. So someone who's underinsured, they have very minimum coverages. Let's say they only have $25,000, or someone that is uninsured, hit and run, a stolen vehicle, they hit you, now what? So this coverage is basically you're suing your carrier, you're suing your insurance company to cover your medical bills, pain and suffering, and lost income. So give you an example with the underinsured motorist. Someone hits you, they have that state minimum coverage, your medical bills are $100,000 and they're only carrying $25,000. Well, you're suing your carrier for the difference of $75,000. That's how it will apply. Whereas with the uninsured motorist coverage, then it's going to be covered directly by the carrier. Medical payments is an optional coverage that you can add on your motorcycle policy, and that's going to cover injuries for you and your passengers on your bike, regardless of who's at fault, before you go through your health insurance. So consider this, because sometimes your health insurance has high deductibles, high co-insurance clauses. It's very minimal premium, and we can discuss that, the different payment limits. And the other piece of the motorcycle policy is the physical damage coverages, if it's applicable. So we're going to want to look at the value of your bike, what you've added to it, and determine if physical damage is needed. And it's broken into two parts. There's comprehensive coverage, which is other than collision. It pays out regardless of who's at fault in the accident. You can claim here, subject to the deductible. And examples of that would be a fire, vandalism, flood, In fact, you can't get flood on your homeowners, but you certainly can get that on an auto and motorcycle policy, theft coverage. Now, comprehensive, if you were to hit an animal, that theoretically falls under comprehensive, but if you swerve to avoid the animal and hit a guardrail, then it falls under collision. So if you only have comprehensive on your policy, keep that in mind. Collision coverage is if you collide with a vehicle or an object, rather, covers the repair and replacement of your motorcycle if damaged in an auto accident. And typically on motorcycle policy, it'll pay on an actual cash value basis. There is the ability to add now on for newer bikes replacement cost. It depends on the year of the bike. Usually it has to be within one model year, or you just recently purchased the bike within the last 30 days, you can add that endorsement on for a fee. And so if the bike is totaled, you will be replaced with like kind. So certainly a feature to keep in mind. All right, specialized coverages. So definitely the bells and whistles of your motorcycle policy. Accessory coverage, it's huge. And I don't think a lot of folks think about it when they're calling in for prices on motorcycle. Luckily, the insurance company has discovered there's a need for that, and for the most part, carriers will give you at least $3,000 included, so that it accounts for custom paint jobs, custom chrome plating, things you may not have thought that it was automatically covered. But typically, a lot of this is aftermarket and not automatically covered under by the dealers, things they add afterwards. And if we could quickly jump to the next slide, I just want to jog your memory about the 10 most common types of accessories that customers add to their motorcycles. So think about all those things. The wheels, you might have special rims, the custom paint we talked about, the safety ride and apparel. Some of that is pretty customized, including the helmets. Some companies have restrictions on helmets, like they won't cover theft, but for the most part, that's they get pretty pricey than a standard helmet. Handlebars control, the saddlebags, sidecars. I don't know if we've seen much of that around here. Trike conversion kits, electronic radios and intercoms, and I guess some engine modifications are accessories as well. And we can just jump back. All right, so we can go through these. You have carried contents coverage. That's your personal property. So your hunting gear, your riding gear can be endorsed onto your policy. They have enhanced injury protection. So, if there's a fatality and, there's a death benefit to be paid to a survivor, or loss of income due to that injury. OEM parts is now huge because, most part the insurance companies use aftermarket equipment when they're repairing your bike. But if you want that genuine manufacturer parts guarantee, add that endorsement in. Make sure that you ask about it. Rental vehicle coverage. So the motorcycle is your motorcycle is in the shop, or you're using a motorcycle under a rental agreement, then the liability, the physical damage can transfer. That's an endorsement you can buy. Trip interruption is probably a big one. If you're in Philadelphia and your motorcycle breaks down and you want to get home, so you'd have to be about 100 miles from home, but it will pay for lodging costs, food, alternate transportation. So maybe you have to rent a car to get home. That's covered under the trip interruption endorsement. We talked about the total loss coverage. So the motorcycle is not more than 1 year old. You can expect the payout to be the current model year. That's a nice feature. And then Fran talked about roadside assistance, big with a AAA. We do protect your bike and it's available, and definitely you want to make sure that you have that with AAA to protect you. Next. Oh, thank you. And we talked about that. And with AAA, these are some of the common types of motorcycles that you see out there riding around on the road. And we can cover them all, from cruisers and touring bikes to trikes to sport bikes. Golf carts are even coverage is available for golf carts, ATVs, mopeds, classic bikes, and more. I can tell you there's a few exclusions. Don't ask me about pocket rockets. I might be hard pressed getting coverage for you for that. But
What are pocket rockets?
oh, there are these very mini motorcycles, like little toys, and they go very fast. They're very dangerous, right, Fran? You probably heard about that. Yes.
So you gave us a wealth of information, Jillian, so much information that I think is very valuable, so that you're sure to really research this when you're purchasing your insurance for your bike or any of these other bikes or trikes or sports bikes and golf carts and mopeds. It seems a lot more electric vehicles are going around, so it's nice to know that we do carry that insurance as well. Thank you so very much for that information. Okay,
My pleasure.
We do have a few questions that came through our chat, and the first one is, and you can decide who's going to take it. Do you have to bring your own motorcycle to take motorcycle training? I think that goes to Fran.
Actually, that's a good question. Whoever asked it, very smart. Anyway, in Connecticut, I can only speak about Connecticut. In Connecticut, we do provide the motorcycles for the basic rider class. They're very small, 250 cc engines. We also provide the helmets if you don't have one, but the student is responsible for bringing the proper gear, wearing jeans, long sleeves, gloves. And we have been known to turn people away after they've paid for the class if they don't have the proper gear. In the experienced rider class, which is for folks who've been riding for a long time, they just want to freshen up their skills, you can use your own motorcycle. And we usually have no more than 12 students in a class per 2 instructors. And the classes do run from the beginning of April to the very end of October.
Excellent. Thank you for answering that. This second question that we just received, as far as gear is concerned, is there particular colors riders should wear to be seen by drivers?
There's a saying in traffic safety circles, see and be seen. So it's important as a rider that you be seen by other drivers because your profile is so narrow on the road. That means a rider should wear bright or light colors, even reflective piping on their gear. My jacket is dark, but it has reflective materials on it. I use a fluorescent yellow helmet. You can pick me out of a crowd. A white helmet or the fluorescent one like mine works very well. I read somewhere that a white or light colored helmet is 75% more visible to other drivers compared to dark ones. But with that said, it's my personal opinion that if you wear a black helmet, especially one with really great graphics, you'll look 75% more cool to your fellow riders.
But safety comes first, Fran. So yes. I think they should use fluorescent helmets, definitely. Because I was surprised with that question, because usually when I see bikers, they're all dressed in their black leather.
Yeah,
they are. Really, they need to dress it up with the trim of a brighter color, which makes sense.
And sometimes I wear the safety vest, the bright orange or yellow safety vest.
You know, I'm starting to see that more frequently than I had in the past. So maybe people are signing up for the class.
You need to be seen. You need to be seen.
Another question just came in. How long is the training? Is it classroom or online or both? And what about practicing on bikes? How long is that training?
Okay. Again, I can only speak for Connecticut. If you take the basic rider course, it runs about 10 hours of classroom. There's an e-course module you have to go through. That's about 4 or 5 hours. Then you have 12 hours on cycle. There's 14 exercises where you learn how to start the bike, how to stop, clutch control, braking, emergency procedures. That's about $200, $220. This is the book that we give you and we work through. For more advanced courses, like the experienced rider or the returning rider, it's usually 6 hours. It's a one-day class on cycle, and you can complete the online version in maybe less than 3 hours. And that runs about $130, $120, depending on which of those two you take. And again, it's money well spent. I mean, on the experienced rider class, we run one every year. We conduct our classes. There's about 10 locations throughout the state of Connecticut. I work on what we call the Fairfield Range near Sacred Heart University in a commuter parking lot on weekends. On the experienced rider class every year, it's usually the same people that come just to refresh their skills. And, you know, the exercises are challenging at best, but I tell my students, any nitwit could ride a bike at 90 miles an hour. Anybody could do that. But a really good rider is someone who knows slow maneuvers and knows how to control the bike and put the bike where it needs to be on the roadway.
Excellent advice, because I know they do swerve in and out sometimes, especially if they're traveling in groups. And we have one last question here, and I think, Julian, you'll be able to answer this one, is do insurance rates vary by state the same as it is for cars? And if motorcycle coverage part of any cost bundling?
Okay, that's a good question. It will vary by state. We'll look at Connecticut. That's where I've done the most of motorcycle quotes. It is credit based. So the better your credit, you will get you'll see a difference in premium for that. And quite frankly, if you have a current policy now and you're coming to us for a quote and you have high limits, they're going to give you a discount additional for that. So I've seen premiums starting from pretty inexpensive, about $150 for just liability to $300 a year for full coverage with that specialized accessory coverage and all those endorsements that we talked about. So you can get a reasonable price for motorcycle. It can be expensive if you have a youthful driver or rider rather with tickets and one of those, sportier bikes. But we do have a few carriers at AAA that we can try to get you the best rate possible, a competitive rate.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Fran and Jillian, for sharing your expertise on motorcycle safety tips and insurance coverage. You really provided a lot of great detailed information that I hope is useful for our viewers. Also, I would like to thank Janet Brown, Shawnee Jarvis, and Mark, my co-workers who make this webinar possible. I couldn't do it without you. And thank you to our viewers for taking the time out of your busy day to sign on. Please, everyone, be safe out there on the roads and take time to give AAA Insurance a call for a motorcycle quote today. From AAA Northeast, I'm Patty Artessa, Regional Director of AAA Northeast Public and Government Affairs. Have a great day, everyone, and stay safe.